Bloomco, good day everyone! Today we're taking a look at the Warhammer in New World, the upcoming mmorpg, which is releasing in only 6 days. Weapons in New World have 2 specialization trees. In the case of Warhammer, it's Juggernaut and Crowd Crusher. When you've put 10 points total in either of the trees, you unlock access to the final passive in that specific tree. You have 19 points, so it's not possible to max out both trees. You can always start at the top of a row, and when you've put a point in it, you unlock access to the second row. You cannot put 2 points in the first one and then think you've unlocked the third one. No. You really need to have put a point in the second one to unlock the third one. You can put multiple points in the same row, that's no problem, because we have 19 points total. And making specific builds is just fun. Anything else? Yeah. To unlock something that's that has a line in between it, you'll obviously have to follow the line. So to unlock lasting stamina, you need to have these two before you can click it. Going these two blocks this, means you can only click on these two. Pretty straightforward. Let's get started. The first skill we are taking a look at. Oh, one more thing, you can have 3 active skills at the same time per weapon. There are 6 skills total, so you can have half of them. The first skill we're taking a look at is Armor Breaker. It's a powerful swing that penetrates 35% of the target's armor and deals 140% weapon damage. Has a cooldown of 12 seconds. Damage numbers, cooldowns, any numbers actually can and will be tweaked over time. But we can get a general first impression of the playstyle, of what their thoughts, what their general idea is about a weapon. And in this case, Armor Breaker, pretty straightforward, does decent damage, has 35% armor penetration, which is a lot. So this 140% weapon damage actually hits a lot harder than just the 140% weapon damage. Yeah, armor penetration is massive in this game, and there are a lot of mobs that have pretty high armor, and in PvP the meta at this moment is also pretty heavy armor, so having armor penetration is great. The first passive of the first skill is Indomitable. Adds grit to the attack, making the attack unstoppable. Grit is great, means you won't be interrupted while using the ability. And yeah, nothing bad to say about that. I love having grit on my attacks, it's awesome. Lasting Stamina. Armor Breaker grants the target rend, reducing damage absorption by 15% for 10 seconds. Reducing their damage absorption is basically a very clear damage increase. They have lower damage, you do more damage. But reducing their damage absorption is actually even better than that, because it also increases your teammates' damage and the damage you do with a different weapon. So you can debuff them, switch over to a different weapon, and do insane damage with it. Also, one more thing, this combined with this, oh, so much armor penetration. It's insane. Opening Act, increasing Armor Breaker damage by 15% against targets with full health. So yeah, you'd really want to start with this ability, doing a bunch of damage, getting the debuff up, and from there on going all out. Let's see. Epitome of Bonk increases armor penetration by 10% for all Warhammer standard attacks. I kind of wonder what they mean with standard attacks, if that's just light and heavy attacks, or are abilities, direct damage abilities, also seen as standard attacks. Well, for now, let's just say this is only for light and heavy attacks, but even then, 10% permanent armor penetration is great. It's absolutely massive, especially when you combine it with this one, reducing their damage absorption by 15%. You will be doing a lot of raw damage straight away. All Warhammer abilities apply exhaust, slowing target stamina regeneration by 15%. That's great. Less stamina for them. This is mostly a PvP thing, because stamina is not really a thing in PvE as far as I've noticed. Correct me if I'm wrong. But in PvP, this is great. Quick recovery. Cooldowns are reduced by 7% with heavy attacks. That's nice. Doing heavy attacks will constantly make the cooldowns of your other abilities shorter. And that would probably mean that you'd be able to keep Armor Breaker up the entire time. And I mean with that lasting stamina. Because Armor Breaker has a 12-second cooldown. If you can make that shorter by a few seconds, then you'd be able to constantly have lasting stamina up. Insane. Insane. Yeah, you'd be forced to constantly do heavy attacks, but heavy attacks are nice anyway. And with a weapon as massive as the Warhammer, you'd really want to just use heavy attacks. And it feels nice, it feels massive, it feels boom. Okay, next skill. Mighty Gavel. Sorry, I have absolutely no idea how to pronounce this. I'll say Gavel. An overhead leaping attack that crushes down on enemies, dealing 160% weapon damage. Pretty long cooldown. Damage is slightly higher than Armor Breaker, but Armor Breaker has the armor penetration, so I'd say Armor Breaker does more damage straightforward, unless this one has some nice passives. On targets under 30% HP, increase damage done by Mighty Gavel by 20%. Okay, so it can be used as a killing blow. So you start with Armor Breaker and later on do killing blow with Mighty Gavel. Increase stamina damage done by Mighty Gavel attack by 25%. Okay, making sure enemies have less stamina, always good. After a successful Mighty Gavel attack, gain haste, increasing player's movement speed by 30% for 3 seconds. It has a pretty long cooldown, so it's not much uptime, but every bit of movement speed is nice to have. So you can do this attack and instantly get out of the way, or if they try to run, sticky back. So yeah. Press basic attack during Mighty Gavel to add a second attack that deals 200% weapon damage. This is the final passive in Juggernaut, so it can only be unlocked when going deep Juggernaut. And this is a lot of damage. Press basic attack, yeah. Wow. So 200% and 160 makes it 360%, which is massive. And you also do more damage when a target is low health. So this is truly a finishing hit. This is a killing blow. It's that simple. Lower their damage, do some initial damage on them, and then boom, Mighty Gavel them out of existence. Hammer time. Gain in power on a heavy attack, increasing attack damage by 20% for 4 seconds. This is massive, because you already want to do heavy attacks with quick recovery. So getting 20% increased damage is massive. It's something to maintain, so it might be seen as an annoyance at the end. But honestly, even without this, you're already doing a lot of damage, and with this, it's just even more. It's great. Just do a heavy attack once in a while, and you have the buff active. Contemption. On targets under 30% HP increase, damage done by heavy attacks by 15%. That makes this even more of a killing blow. All your attacks actually, but yeah, this is the finishing move, so making it even stronger is awesome. Power through pain. For 1 second after taking damage, deal 35% extra damage. Ooh. That's a lot of damage, but it is a bit harder to use. So this will not be that useful for taking down healers that are trying to run, but when fighting in a group, constantly getting damage, you'll constantly be doing a lot of extra damage. Yeah, it's interesting. I do wonder if you'll be missing out on this extra damage with boss fights. I can totally see Juggernaut players taking some damage on purpose, so they have this extra damage. Well, we'll see how it goes. If that ends up being the case, healers are going to hate Warhammer players. That's clear. Hardened Steel adds grit to Warhammer heavy attacks. Oh man. And grants a 15% damage reduction while the heavy attack grid is active. Grid is an added stagger resistance that stops attacks from being interrupted. Yeah. Oh, this is so good. So not only do you get increased damage, reduced cooldowns with heavy attacks, but you also have grit while doing it, and it grants you damage reduction while the grid is active. So doing your heavy attacks makes you tankier while doing the heavy attacks and giving you loads of buffs. This is so strong. Yep. I'm loving this so far. Wrecking Ball. Strike the ground around the target with a hammer, dealing 120% weapon damage and flattening the enemy. Cooldown 15 seconds. This is crowd control. This is what we needed, because only raw damage is not going to kill anyone. Well, in PvP. In PvE, raw damage is enough. But in PvP, you can come in like a wrecking ball, yo. You know it had to be said. And doing that damage with your other skills while having this crowd control on a fairly short cooldown, which will be even shorter thanks to this. Nice. Nice. I can totally see myself armor breaking, slamming them on the ground, and using this to finish them off. Potentially with some heavy attacks in between. But at least I'd be saving my Wrecking Ball for my Mighty Gavel just to have the insane damage. Because this one doesn't have crit, right? Or does it? No, it doesn't. Okay. So you really want to time your crowd control with your Mighty Gavel. It's straightforward. On a successful hit, player obtains Fortify, granting 20% damage resistance for 4 seconds. More damage resistance is always nice to have. All targets within 1.5 meter of the target hit are also flattened. Oh, okay, so it's an AoE crowd control. This is strong. Does this also hit AoE? Crush down on enemies? Not sure how much actual AoE size it has, but if it's single target, it's already strong. But if you can manage to hit 2 or maybe even 3 people with it that are standing on top of each other, that's insane. All in all, so far Juggernaut, lots of damage reduction for on enemies, so armor penetration, grit on your heavy attacks so you won't be interrupted, so you can keep attacking while they might be staggered depending on what weapon types they have. You have Wrecking Ball, you can CC them, you can give your entire team and other weapon increased damage with lasting stamina. And yeah, this finishing hit, it's awesome. I don't see any way to really get back health. This is not a lifesteal weapon so far. This is a raw, heavy damage weapon, and it protects you while doing so. So you do a lot of damage and you have high damage reduction. Nice. Let's take a look at Crowd Crusher. Crowd Crusher is the second specialization tree for the Warhammer. The first skill we're taking a look at is Shockwave. Slam the hammer into the ground, causing a 3 meter radius AoE earthquake that deals 80% weapon damage. Applies stun to all impacted targets for 2 seconds. You can use the taunt gem on it to get aggro from monsters if you'd want to. Cooldown 20 seconds. 2 second AoE stun is massive. That's nice. That's probably the better version of Wrecking Ball. Most likely. Frailty. The trauma of the attack causes weaken, decreasing the damage dealt from the target's attacks by 10% for 10 seconds. That's also nice, because if they do less damage, then you take less damage. Pretty straightforward. Expands the affected range of the shockwave to a 4 meter radius. This is a big AoE stun that barely does any damage, but it is a nice stun, and that's awesome. Outnumbered. Increase damage absorption by 10% if surrounded by 2 or more enemies within 3 meters of a player. There will be a lot of scenarios where there are at least 2 enemies surrounding you, so 10% extra damage absorption is nice. Facilitated Expedition. After hitting a target with an active debuff, for example this one, obtain haste, increasing movement speed by 15% for 3 seconds. Oh. If we can make a build where this is constantly up, constantly this debuff being up on your enemy, then you'd constantly have haste. You'd constantly be 15% faster than most others. That's good. That's pretty funny, because the Warhammer seems like such a slow weapon, but having a constant haste buff, that's nice. That's really nice. After 2 light attacks with the Warhammer, debuff durations on players are reduced by 25%, can only trigger once every 5 seconds. They mean that debuff durations on yourself, so not enemy players. You can shorten debuffs on yourself with light attacks. It's okay, but it's a bit too low. Also, well, no, it's okay. It's okay. It's not bad. Crowd Crusher, a wide swing that knocks enemies back 4 meters to create distance. Look, as a melee character, you want to be close. But in some scenarios you want to get away. If you are losing a fight, then this is a great way to get the heck away from there. Also, knocking enemies back counts as an interrupt, so you can interrupt certain heals or casters or whatever with it. So even at the cost of pushing them away, it might still be worth it just for the interrupt. Hitting a target with clear cut grants Fortify, providing a 10% defense bonus for 4 seconds to all friendlies within 6 meters. That's nice. People will love this in group combat. Clear out cooldown is reduced by 5% per enemy hit with the ability. Okay. Using clear cut on the target grants haste, increasing movement speed by 30% for 3 seconds. So you can either get away even faster, so you swing someone away and run away with your increased haste, or you can get really close to them pretty easily again. I can do this all day. Reduce stamina consumption by 30% when blocking melee attacks. So you can block a lot. It kind of feels like this is the tank tree for Warhammer, because you can block a lot, and this one is a town jam. Reduce damage taken while sprinting, okay. Plus 15% damage against targets affected by Warhammer debuffs. This is very nice. This is very, very nice. Regain 35% of damage dealt as held when using a Crowd Crusher ability. Crowd Crusher ability. Okay, Crowd Crusher abilities are these 3. So far their damage has been lacking. And getting 35% damage of lacking damage back as held. You know, I love lifesteal. I honestly do. But the damage numbers are so low that honestly it just feels a bit mediocre. Reduce Warhammer cooldowns by 7% when using light attacks against targets hit with an active debuff. Also reduce, yeah. I mean, it's actually easier to do light attacks than it is to do heavy attacks. And you'd want to have this debuff up anyway. So this makes it tempting to go for a light attack build Juggernaut instead. But yeah, your heavy attacks have grit and damage reduction. And now, okay, I'm still going heavy attack damage. Okay, Path of Destiny, a powerful ground strike that erupts a linear wave of energy in front of a player, dealing 110% weapon damage to all targets in its path. This is just simple, straightforward damage. Now staggers, that makes it a bit better. It has CC on it. And the cooldown is reduced by 5% for each enemy hit. It seems that Crowd Crusher really is more CC based, tanky based, and on multiple opponents based, because this one has shorter cooldown per enemy hit, this one has shorter cooldown per enemy hit. So you really want to hit as many opponents as possible, potentially by tanking in a dungeon, using your abilities on a group, and getting it back a lot faster. Whenever a target is affected by a crowd control effect, they are slowed by 20% for 4 seconds. Aftershock. I wonder if that 4 seconds starts after the CC or at the start of the CC, because if you do a 2-second stun and it instantly gets slowed, then you only have a 2-second slow afterwards. But if you have a 4-second slow after the 2-second stun, that will be pretty okay. But only a 2-second slow, I don't know. This doesn't feel too hype, especially when you compare it with Justice for All, which is a lot of extra damage. So for now, yeah, I'd say Crowd Crusher is the crowd control. I think the name is fitting. It's good for fighting a crowd, controlling them, having shorter cooldowns on them, having CC. So if you are going for a full tanky build where damage is not your main concern, Crowd Crusher is the way to go. However, if you want to slam face, go Juggernaut. I mean, it makes sense, right? With a name like this, Juggernaut. You just want to slam face. And thinking about what kind of build I'd go Armor Breaker any day, for sure. Increase Armor Breaker damage. This one I'm considering, but Armor Breaker is not really there for the damage. But we'll see. This one is a must. This one is a must. This one is a must. This one is not. This one is super strong. This one is super strong. I want this for the raw damage. We have 6 points left. I'm considering for a bit if I want to take either of these. Let me take a look at what the options here are. Going for this one. 10% extra damage absorption is great. It's absolutely great. Reduce damage taken while sprinting. This one, 15% extra damage against target affected by a debuff. You'll constantly be having this one up, so that's extra damage for free. This is the extra movement speed you'll constantly be getting. This one is not needed. This one is not needed. I'm going for this one and this one. This is the build I'll be going with when it comes to Warhammer for both PvP and PvE right now. This is not the build you'd want to go for a tank. As I said, as a tank you want to go Crowd Crusher. But this is... Oh no, wait. Oh, I made a serious mistake. My bad. One moment. Going back. I did not pick this skill because I wanted to go for this one, but I completely forgot it. Let's see. This one was low priority and this one was low priority. This one is high priority. And this one is also high priority. This one is less important. Okay, yeah, this is how I do it. My bad. So yeah, starting the combat with Armor Breaker. Armor Breaker has the debuff, has grid, cannot be stopped, and you have loads of armor penetration with this build. You do extra damage on low health targets. Your mighty gavel combined with Justice for All will slam people. And initially I said using Wrecking Ball to open up opportunity for mighty gavel, but honestly Shockwave is better for that. It has an actual 2-second stun, and it also lowers their damage dealt for 10 seconds afterwards. So yeah, constantly having higher haste, constantly doing more damage, and if you had to sprint, you even take less damage. So yeah, this is how I play Warhammer initially, and it has so much damage. It's insane, and I know numbers will be tweaked. I keep saying that, but oof, the potential of this, especially because the debuffs stay on an enemy when you switch over to a different weapon. But even as a single weapon, Warhammer can slam. It really doesn't need a second weapon to do the damage required to take someone down. So nice. Release is almost upon us. It's only 6 more days. I'll be trying to get the other weapons 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 all out before the game releases. So I might be doing I'll have to do a double release one of these days, but I like doing these videos, so we'll see how it goes. Maybe no, I'm not making any calls for now. I wish you all a great day. If you have anything to discuss about this weapon, what were your experiences in the beta? Are you planning to use this weapon? Are you like, heck no, this weapon is silly or whatever? Just mention whatever you want, okay? And I'll talk to you all later. Have a great day.